Greetings. I want to share with you a recap from session 103, where we talk about demonstrating ethical practice. So first of all, as we talk about ICF's Code of Ethics, which you've all received a handout of that, first of all, let's just talk about why ethics matter in coaching. And the essence is that it establishes standards to ensure professionalism, integrity, and trust in coaching relationships. And it's also important as we talk about being ICF-trained or ICF-certified coaches, that in essence people can experience the same level of excellence. They know that there's going to be confidentiality, transparency, privacy. And in essence, if they go from one coach to another that's ICF-trained, they're going to get a similar experience, not the exact same, but similar, where we're honoring boundaries, we're setting norms, we're using agreements, we're following the client. All those things are really critical. So in essence, we want to emphasize the importance of having a standard, a benchmark in which all ICF trained or ICF certified coaches will adhere to. So, and obviously it starts a little bit when we talk about coaching, when we talk about engaging with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process. But it's a partnership in which we follow their leads. But an important element that we need to convey is that they are responsible for their choices, they're responsible for their results, and they're responsible for actually setting what their outcomes will be. And sometimes if a client can think that you're supposed to come up with those things. And our goal is to be an expert as asking questions to help them clarify their outcomes, their next steps, their decisions, and their results, and make sure that they're owning that and they don't see that as your responsibility. So obviously we talk a lot about confidentiality and creating safe space and making sure that this is a place where people can share what they need to without any concern about that information going beyond that conversation or that particular room. Another critical element when we talk about demonstrating ethical practice is this idea of conflict of interest. It's really important that they know that you have their best interests in your mind and that you're paying attention to what best serves them, not what best serves you as the coach. And this often can become a little confusing if we have a third party involved, a person that's perhaps paying for the coaching and kind of wants to know information, hey, what's going on in those coaching relationships, where we can't say what's going on. We could convey, and per agreement with third party, that we can tell them when coaching conversation took place or didn't, but we don't tell them the essence or the content or the decisions that are made. That's not our purview. That would break the sense of confidentiality and creating safety in that environment. And also a conflict of interest. You have to be very careful as to, and again, are you the best person to serve that individual for where they seek to go? Or would they be better served with having a person that's a certified counselor or a mentor rather than a coach? So again, are we always making it in our agreement, are we always doing what's in the best interest of the client? So always think about if there's a conflict of interest. And if not, at a minimum, we need to be naming that. And I would say in 95% of the cases, when there is any potential, even perceived or real, that we should look at that we're not the right person to fit in. We should find someone else that does not have that conflict. So it's just very important that we understand the role of the coach of following the lead, ensuring confidentiality, but not owning the outcomes, the decisions, the next steps, the choices that people make, and making sure that we create safe space and that we're not doing anything that would not be in the best interest of the client. So here's a couple ways that we ensure that safety is that we establish these clear coaching agreements. From following that process of the basic coaching agreement, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to take away? Are we still talking about what's most important to you? What do you see as your next steps? Who's going to hold you accountable? So we have a kind of an intentional flow of what the coaching relationships looks like. Then, of course, we have the coaching agreement about the actual relationship itself, how long it will be, what's the intended outcomes, who's going to initiate calls or conversations, all those kind of logistical pieces that we articulate, walk through, create specific norms and standards, and then we put it into some written form that we email or send to people and often have people sign. So it's really important that we honor those 3 agreements that we talked about in earlier conversations. And again, all of that's about co-creating the relationship so it's a win-win for both parties, and we're always acting in the client's best interest. So a couple of the things that came up with this when we're talking about specific principles and practices, we first of all talk about the essence, the importance of professionalism as a ICF-certified coach or trained coach. And as we talk about, that a coach continues to learn and self-reflects. They're continuing to grow and master the skill and the process of coaching. They continue to demonstrate ethical decision-making and pull themselves out of a time where they might be triangulated. And they share with people what their competencies are. They don't convey that they're a therapist unless they are actually certified, and then they need to be really clear about what role they're playing in that helping conversation. So, and that's where we, as one of the ethical elements, is if we're not the person that's best qualified, or in many cases certified to be providing certain services, then we need to make sure that we're referring that individual to someone who is, and not take over that role that we're not equipped to do well or to do the best work on behalf of the client. So there's that aspect of maintaining that professional integrity, that aspect of staying in our lane, avoiding conflicts of interest, and upholding the reputation of the coaching profession. So professionalism is really important. And again, and once you complete this course, there's no reason that you can't be coaching other people, both in the process and at the end. But you cannot say that you are an ICF-certified coach. You can only say I'm an ICF-trained coach, and I've completed an ACC-level training course. That's the information you have. You can tell how many coaching hours you've logged if you like. But if you're to be certified, we walk through these pieces. First of all, you have to complete this course, the ACC-level course. You also have to complete another course called Mentor Coaching. And that needs to take place over a period of 3 months. It involves generally 8 hours of group coaching and 3 hours of individual coaching. And in that process, you typically create a couple recorded coaching sessions that need to be uploaded to ICF upon your desire to become a member and desire to be certified. So you take one class, the ACC, you take the mentor coaching class, and then you start logging your hours, and then you have to actually have at least 100 coaching hours under your belt, in essence, before you're going to actually apply for ICF membership and then take the ICF exam. And then I mentioned as you need to have 2 recordings that a person like our director of coaching, Felix Villanueva, has actually signed off on and says you meet the proficiency levels that indicate you have the qualities to be a good coach for anyone that's under the umbrella of being ICF trained. So those are important elements. That's what builds and so there's critical benchmarks we all need to be paying attention to. So a couple other things I want you to be mindful of is that we want to make sure that we're inclusive, that we're using the language of the client, that we're neutral. We continue to have a coaching presence and mindset that allows us to be engaged, but not trying to fix things, not judging the individual, but we're just there again, drawing out their collective wisdom and insights and helping them identify next steps to move forward. So also want to lift up a couple other things as we talk about what is ethical, what's not. I think it's important that sometimes in the agreement, again, making it really clear that if they said, well, I went through 10 coaching sessions with you and I didn't achieve my outcome, to me, that would be a red flag. Not only we might not have looked at, well, were they ready for coaching? Were they willing to do their part to get to those results? Or did we in some ways say or do or not say or do something that caused them to assume that that was your responsibility to get them to that point rather than their own responsibility with your help and asking powerful questions? So think about the professionalism, think about how clear that your norms and expectations are in that process, and also want you to think about another critical element in coaching is that either party can end the coaching relationship if we don't think it's a good fit, or when either party just feels, hey, something's off here, or this isn't good timing, or whatever. Just note that both parties can end prematurely. So if you sign a 6-month contract and you realize 3 months into it, it's not really working, in that setting, we have the conversation, and if we both mutually agree, well, I would end up refunding their money if they've paid up front. So always know that we want to, again, do what's in the best interest of the client. But it's okay for either party to end it if they don't feel like this continues to be a good fit, and how do they wish to move forward. So a couple last things I just want to lift up. So again, the importance of professionalism, the importance of staying in your lane, the importance of making sure there's no third-party interests, that you're always doing something that's in their best interest and not have a conflict of interest. And then a couple other things too I want to lift up. In the coaching, when we talk about demonstrating ethical practices, I think one area where we can violate that is, we set the original agreement, and if it's a longer term coaching contract, we don't go back 2 months later or 3 months later and just say, are we still honoring these pieces that were in our norms and expectations? And I think that's really important to go back and do that. And there's a time where I worked with a client and we met early in the year. Then due to budget and some staff transitions, they deferred that for about 6 months. And then as we started, there were just some things that I knew were off. And it was because, in essence, some new parties had come on board. The things that we discussed that were fresh in the minds of the client 6 months ago, I did not appropriately reiterate and revisit all those expectations again. And we had to do that at about a month into the coaching relationship. Just saying, there's a couple things off here. I think some of the assumptions and expectations we originally set, we're not honoring, and how do we reset so that we can make the most of this coaching relationship. But always be mindful that if new parties become involved, or if it's been a while since you've actually walked through the written agreement and the expectations for both parties, you should do that. And it doesn't hurt to periodically review those every couple months to make sure you're on track. So think about professionalism, think about confidentiality, think about staying in your lane, and thinking about how you continue to convey the essence of co-creating a relationship where they're in charge of the results, the decisions, and their specific actions that they take. You are not responsible for those. You are only responsible for helping draw those elements out and allowing them to choose what their next step might be. So read through the document, pay particular attention to those elements about what we commit to as a coach in those relationships. Pay particular attention to what it means to be a professional coach. Some great bullet points in that document. And we will continue to refer to that throughout our various sessions during the ACC class. Now for just a couple notes, a couple reminders. September 24th, there will be a coaching book discussion taking place Wednesday, 12 o'clock to 12:45 Central Time. That will provide a nice overview of that book, Breakthrough Coaching. And that'll be a good refresher for you, or might be a way to kind of encapsulate some of the key themes that we'll embed from that book into our coaching practice. It's totally optional. Don't have to take it, but I do want to give you a heads up on that. My hope is, because we're going to start referring to it in some ways, I want you just to read the first 3 chapters, ideally, Breakthrough Coaching, before our next session. Have a kind of a familiar idea of some of the basic themes and concepts from those 3 chapters. Also want to have you continue to read the coaching manual if you haven't already done so, and to continue watching and perhaps rewatching the 10 core competency videos that Felix has created for you. So that's where we stand today. And by the way, everyone has served as a coach, and they have been coached. We will be bringing in at least one person each week to be one of your trainers, or to address a case study, or to coach one of you, or to share some observations about your coaching. So you got a chance to meet some of our other past students, some of our current trainers, and just want you to know that they bring a wealth of wisdom and insight and creativity. I think you'll really enjoy their presence in the class. So that's it for now. Look forward to seeing you on Monday when we walk through our session 104. And again, just a reminder, if you're wondering where that link is, and always the link goes live the day of, because otherwise it's password protected, but just put in surfacethesoul.org/ and then the session number. So for Monday, it'll be 104. Be well. Have a good weekend. Take care.